which the country was founded. The conflict with Hamas has had a side benefit by bringing Israel and Egypt to closer cooperation on battling terrorists. That's the view of Dr. Emily Landau, the director of the Arms Control Program at the Institute for Strategic Studies in Tel Aviv. Landau told IBA's Aryeh O'Sullivan that while there is no military answer against Hamas, Israel and Egypt will likely work together to contain it.
Well, one of the things that has emerged from the last 4 weeks is that we do see eye to eye with Egypt on any number of the issues that regard Hamas. I think we've heard, enough statements coming out of Egypt that make it very clear where Sisi places the blame for things that have been going on. There's some other, we have Jordan, Saudi Arabia, maybe the United Arab Emirates in the Gulf. So there are enough players in the region that I think if Israel makes a determined effort to work with them, and of course with the United States, but anchoring it in Egypt, I think there's a chance for maybe reaching some kind of agreement.
Set itself up for a trap. I mean, the strategic doctrine is we have a conflict with an enemy state or an entity, and then we create a deterrence, and it has a sort of a period of quiet with Hezbollah, with Hamas in previous engagements. This time it shows that there is no military answer. And
there is no military answer, and that's why I think it needs to move to some kind of political arrangement for the Gaza Strip and for that region and for the Palestinian people that live there. But it can't be one that we reach together with Hamas sort of as a legitimate, as I said, with a legitimate seat at the table. That dynamic has to change, and it seems to me that that's Israel's major message right now. And I think it's very clear to any number of actors on the international scene that, when you have 5 or 6 ceasefires that Hamas keeps violating, something needs to give, something needs to change in this dynamic. And I think that's what Israel is trying to do.
Is one of the side benefits from this whole conflict the relationship between Israel and Egypt? Are we going to see something now because Sisi's in control, not the Muslim Brotherhood, maybe a little bit more on the surface cooperation?
Well, look, I think it's very clear that there's a lot of common interest between Israel and Egypt. Strangely enough, certain elements of cooperation, security cooperation, continued even when Morsi was at the helm. Although we had, the fear that things would collapse, Muslim Brotherhood, et cetera, when it comes down to clear interest, we need to work together because there's a terrorist threat in Sinai. Suddenly we were able to work together, at least at that level. With Sisi, it will obviously be easier because it's not the Muslim Brotherhood. With regard to Hamas, our interests are much more closely aligned, obviously, and so that enables even more cooperation. I'm not sure how much we'll see it at the open and above ground level in terms of clear statements, etc., but we'll see it through the behavior on the ground, and that at the end of the day is what's most important.
The 2 terror attacks in Jerusalem this past week were not an aberration, according to Jerusalem